No.
And everyone mute yourselves if you're not speaking. Don't forget. Okay, welcome everyone to Roadmap to Reform. Today we'll be talking about, wait, first of all, I'm Brit Christopher, third year YFC. Like I said earlier, welcome to Roadmap to Reform. Today we'll be talking about our recommendations for this year. We'll also have a little brief conversation, a little Q&A with the audience. So we will be talking to you and hearing from you. Right now I'm gonna recap what we did last week. In part one.
Can you repeat it one more time? Because we still have a couple people rolling in who just signed up.
Okay.
Give
Listen,
everybody a sec to sign on and get settled.
Right. All right. So I'm gonna let it marinate, and then we're gonna start back up.
Thanks, Brit.
I think you can start off now, Britt.
All righty. Here we go. Well, like I was saying, welcome to Roadmap to Reform. I'm Brit Christopher from YFC. I'm a third year. I'll be the moderator for today. Today we'll be talking about our recommendations for the projects we chose, and also we'll have a brief discussion with you guys right after we talk about our recommendations. So a little Q&A with the people. Okay. What we did last week. Wait, my bad. I got like so sidetracked. All right. So now we'll be talking about last week what we did. In part one of our part one of what we did. Pulling it up now. Okay, so last week we talked about the project we chose. We talked about projects YFC and J4J chose, my bad. We talked about whether or not incarceration for youth was restorative or helpful. We talked about mental health connections to the community. We talked a little bit about whether or not anyone figured out why youth was in trouble and acting out in the juvenile justice system. And we talked about any supports we wanted or could have had while we were in care. So if Duane, Lexi, Jihad want to just touch on the topics they spoke about last week in our conversation and see how they feel about it. So Duane, can you go ahead for me and tell me how you felt about last week and what you talked about? Then we can move it on to Lexi and Speedy.
Yeah, I sure can. Hello, everyone. My name is Duane. Last week, we hit a lot of key issues. We had a lot of good points, and it went very well. One of the things that we was mentioning, that I mentioned, is having why mental health isn't widely available for all youth in the foster care system, and I gave out a little bit of details why, and I also, went into more depth about my personal experience that affected me on the issues regarding mental health, and why isn't those supports available for youth when they're in care and when they exit out of care. Uh, and it went very well. So thank you. Speedy, if you don't mind going next.
So yeah, Speedy, just a few takeaways from last week. or Lexi or Jahai, anyone who want to speak about last week and what they talked about, how they felt about it.
Okay, I'll go. I'm Jahad speaking. One of the things we recapped about last week is how instead of incarcerating youth fast, they could actually go into neighborhoods and help. Like instead of taking money from schools or things that's important, they could take money from, or I'm not gonna say take money, but refund or deduct a little from overpaid jobs and use them to the community.
Okay, so you're saying defund the police and give a little more money to the schools and mental health services. I feel that definitely. Lexi, you want to talk about any key points you had last week? And if not, we can go right into talking about what we doing next week, and that's all fine.
Sure. I'll just say that I spoke on mental health and connections to community supports and why they're so important. Also, extracurricular activities and why they're so important, especially for youth that struggle with mental illnesses.
Okay, I see you. And last week, I personally talked about mental health and care. So basically, I spoke on how some placements don't give the proper therapeutic services and medication to some youth, and how they could do it better. That's what I talked about. And if you ever want to have that conversation, we can talk about it sidebar any day. Next week will be join us next week. Actually, that's what I'm trying to say. It's on the 30th. It's the part 3 and the final section of our road map to reform. So please, if you got the link, click it. So now, Marcia, would you like to give a program overview so the people can understand what we do and how we do it?
Yes, thanks, Fred. I appreciate you and appreciate all the recap that everybody gave. Um, you guys will get to know more about all of our members in a few minutes, and you just heard from a few of them. So our program at Juvenile Law Center is our youth advocacy program. Under our program, we have Juveniles for Justice for young people who have lived experience in the juvenile justice system, and Youth Fostering Change for young people who have experience in the foster care system. And then we have another component of our program, which is our Youth Speakers Bureau, that allows all of our members to engage in various speaking engagements and opportunities and presentations and trainings to teach folks how to engage and work with young people who have experience in these systems, talk about and identify challenges and other strategies to improve outcomes for young people in these systems. Our program has been around for almost 11 years, I believe. We're coming up on 11. We are really excited about this program. I love the work that I do with the young people here at Juvenile Law Center. As always, we're always interested in continuing to work with different colleagues on different ways that we can work to really improve the system or change things drastically for young people, not just in the Philadelphia area, but nationally, who have experience in both of these systems. So again, I thank you guys for being here today. We're really excited, like Brit said, to do the second part and then to close out our series next Friday. So again, I'm Marcia. I'm one of the program managers at Juvenile Law Center, and I'm going to pass it over. Actually, I'll pass it to Miss Cathy, and then we'll have other folks, the rest of our team on here also identify themselves as well. Oh, briefly, actually, before we do introductions, if folks can say their pronouns, how long you've been in the program, you know, why you all do this work together, and something that you're passionate about. So I love working with everybody, and I'm just passionate, honestly, to do this work every day with young people.
Thank you, Marcia. As Marcia said, I am also one of the program managers at Juvenile Law Center. I have been working with these programs for over 8 years now. And what makes me passionate about the work is being able to see change when change is really needed. Popcorn, Duane.
Hello again, everyone. My name's Duane. I've been with YFC for this is my second year with YFC, and I'm glad to be here. It's a really great, program, great people to work with, and just like what Miss Cathy said and Miss Marcia said, I love to be part of, to help change, to bring change to help a lot of other youth that's in the child welfare system, and this is also going to help me reach my long-term goal, which is trying to become a legal child advocate for lots of youth that's in the child welfare system. So that's my passion. Britt or anybody else that would like to go next?
Let's go, Duane. I felt that. I didn't know those was your goals. See you. I'm Brit. I'm third year with YFC, like I said earlier. Um, what were we talking about? I love JLC. We have a good time. Not only do we get things done, but we got vibes within our community. Let's see. That's all I got. Lexi, tell me about you. Tell me how you feel about Juvenile Law Center. You like it? You don't like it? Be
Y'all
honest.
know I love Juvenile Law Center, Brit. Don't play. So hey everybody, it's Lexi. This is actually going on my 4th year this year. Um, like I said, I love JLC. I do what I do because of, for one, my experiences in the child welfare system, but also just because I always wanted to make a difference and help youth that are, currently and in the future going to be going through these systems. Hopefully we can make the systems better. And that's basically what I'm passionate about too. I about, children's well-being and my future. So yeah, Speedy, if you want to go.
How you guys doing? I'm Speedy. Hold on, actually, I'm gonna turn on my camera. Give me a moment. I apologize for not responding earlier. Um, I was busy stuffing my face. But my name is Speedy. This is my second year. Same thing what Britt said. Love this job. I don't want to ever leave. Although I know I have to in another year. Great job, great vibes. We do great work. One thing I'm passionate about is eating and art and helping these youth. I guess I got popcorn. Someone. Who else is on here?
Jihad.
Jahad's
Jihad.
the last one.
Go get him, bro.
Might turn
Jihad,
my camera on. I'm gonna turn my camera on. One split second. Give me a moment, please.
No problem.
Okay. My name Jihad. I've been with the Juvenile Law Center for this month. It's me being first experience. And I couldn't really go outside like that, and job helped me get outside. Oh, that was emotion.
I think we're having some sound difficulties with Jihad. But why don't we give you a second, Jihad? We also have another member on. We have Quilla. Quilla, do you want to introduce yourself? Say how long you've been part of the program and why you do the work? Quilla, can you hear us? It seems like everybody's having some glitches today, which we all can understand. And if we have to jump back and forth to do some introductions, that's okay too. Jihad, how's your sound right now? Do you want to try to introduce or should we skip? Okay, why don't we get back to when we're doing the J for J recommendations, we can go back to Quilla and Jihad and have them reintroduce themselves. Thank you, Britt.
Okay. I just realized that the question was, "What are you passionate about?" I didn't answer that one. I'm passionate about youth advocacy, writing, and art, and getting through today. It's all the things I'm passionate about. So now we're going to talk about our recommendations. Duane, if you could just read us all our recommendations, everything we chose this year, and let the people know what we're doing, that would be nice.
Yes, I sure can. Hello, everyone, again. For this next part, I'm going to read off some recommendations that me and the YFC team have created to help make sure foster care reform happens within the mental health. So I'm getting ready to begin. So for the first recommendations, we connect families to critical preventative services to keep youth with their families and connected with resources to sustain behavioral health care and well-being. The Department of Human Services must develop new policies and procedures to decrease the likelihood of racial bias in the investigative process before families enter into the child welfare system, and in the assessment of delivery of mental and behavioral health services throughout their system involvement. Develop concrete policies and resources for kinship and foster families that increase the placement stability and decrease placement disruption, dissolved adoptions, and reliance on group care. To address youth needs at the initial foster system involvement, we recommended that a protocol be issued to the community umbrella agencies, CUAs, that require that a screening for behavioral health needs occur as soon as a youth enters the system, and that the results of this assessment are noted in the youth's case plan. To address youth mental health needs throughout their time in foster care, we recommend that DHS and CUAs continue to connect youth with therapeutic services and community supports. Ensure the availability of age appropriate, high quality services that engage young people. To ensure consistency of mental health support for youth in care, we recommend that youth be offered the option to connect with mobile and virtual therapeutic supports, not only when they enter into the foster care system, but throughout their time in care. Therapeutic support, therapeutic services, and medication must be provided after an individualized assessment, be qualified by qualified professionals, and following full consideration of alternative pharmaceuticals. Implement school based supports to reduce the potential of trauma imposed on youth and families, and to reduce the impact of racial bias in the foster care system. We recommend that school based supports and protocols be implemented to prevent DHS removal from the home. Thank you, everyone. And I will be passing the next segment is uh, J for J.
Oh wait, no, not yet,
The,
not yet. Thank you,
no,
Duane, for reading out all the recommendations. I appreciate you. So now that you heard all our recommendations, these recommendations are for the youth. They're for social workers. They're for judges. They're for anyone that can make that change happen. And Lexi, would you like to tell me your recommendation? Which one means the most to you and why?
Hey, you guys, sorry. So connection, I'm sorry. Connect youth to mental health professionals, I think would be the most important one to me. Um, Basically, I feel like someone should have set me up in therapy while like the advocate was trying to keep me in my home and with my biological family. Um, I just feel like that would have really helped me a lot. Once I entered into care, I feel like they should have gotten me like right into therapy, and I just feel like if that would have happened, I would have been able to work through my issues immediately, and yeah, I don't feel like I would struggle so much to this day with my mental health. I feel like I could have worked through some issues when I was younger, and I would be better off to this day. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Lex. I appreciate you. Back to Dwayne. Dwayne, can you tell me what recommendation is your favorite and why? And a little bit background on it, how you felt about it, whatever you want to share.
Yes. Brit. Um, the recommendation that I chose uh was, sorry about that. The recommendation that I chose. Can you come back to me really quick, Brit? Sorry about that. Some having technical issues here.
Most definitely. All right, so while Dwayne is getting that situated, I can go into Amber's recommendation. Amber isn't here with us today, but I will be speaking on behalf of her, which is actually kind of good because we chose the same recommendation, which is perfect. Okay, so her recommendation is therapeutic services and medication must be provided. This recommendation is important to me because most youth are given medication just because of how they're feeling. For example, if a youth is feeling sad, they say it's depression, or if someone is feeling angry, they have anger issues. It's not just the medication, it supports, it's supposed to be the medication and the therapy combined together that make the magic happen. Therapists and psychiatrists are very quick to medicate people and not just try to look at their problems and see if there are any aspects that are causing the problem that could be addressed. So what I feel like Amber is saying here is find other alternatives. You don't have to go straight to medication. You can do a little bit of therapy before medication. So that's definitely a good one. Now I'm gonna just transition into mine since it's the same one. So like I said, our recommendation is therapeutic services and medication must be provided after individualized assessments and qualified professionals and following up with full consideration of any alternatives. So this one means a lot to me because personally I've been affected by not getting the proper treatment I needed or wanted. So ensuring that youth is getting the proper therapeutic services and no one is saying, oh, you got bipolar disorder because you're angry, because what kid isn't angry that they got taken out of their home and is acting out? It's normal. So I would say treat youth as if they're normal and not just throw medicine at them because we're not zombies. And Dwayne, if you can, are you ready? If not, I can move on to the next person. And I
I'm
can come
ready.
back to you. Alrighty,
Sorry
let me
about
know
that,
how you
everyone.
feel
There's
about these
technical difficulties.
recommendations. It's all good.
The recommendation that I chose was to keep youth with their families and connected with the right supports. This is a some of its personal experience I'm about to share. When I first got into care, I was placed at the DHS building, waiting to see what would happen next. I was hoping that I could go back home or with another family member, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Instead, I was placed into care with no other alternative options that was set up in place, so I wouldn't get it. So I set up in place so I wouldn't enter into care. Uh, I had to wait a few months before I started to receive therapeutic services, and things could have been a whole lot better if other options were laid out on the table and a lot quicker. But unfortunately, for lots of youth, certain things, could have been prevented only if a proper plan, other alternatives, or extra support services were available so, they can receive the help they need. Um, I picked that, you know, I picked that recommendation because I just believe that, you know, a lot of youth, they go into care for, stuff that they shouldn't really need to go into care. And there's just not enough plans or options or alternatives available or set up so they don't have to go into group homes or foster homes. And, it tears them away from their families. And obviously that's a big, problem right there. And it's, it causes a lot of emotions and mental health issues. So I just, believe that there should be extra supports available to help families and youth. So instead of just throwing them in group homes and foster homes when it's not needed.
Thank you, Duane. I definitely feel that. It's so many things where it's like you could have helped this family before you took this kid out of their home, just to potentially ruin the aftermath of their life. Speedy, can you tell me your favorite recommendation? And why do it mean that much to you?
All right. Well, the recommendation that I had chose was to develop concrete policies and resources for kinship and foster families that increase placement stability and decrease placement disruption, dissolved adoptions, and reliance on group care. What I wrote for that honestly is the fact that it's important to me is because to find a family member, it's better to find a family member for a child to stay with, or a family friend, like someone that they can trust. Because sometimes they might not, feel comfortable living with their parents. That might be the case, but I think that living with strangers can cause like a lot of. I apologize. Um, it can cause a lot of mental instability. Not only with identity issues, like I said last week, but also with personal growth. Um, and yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Can you guys just come back to me? I'm sorry.
See, I picked up what you was laying down, Speedy. I seen what you was saying. They putting us in these homes with strangers when we're taught not to even speak to strangers, and then they expect us to live with them, and everything is just supposed to be okay. We're not supposed to react. We're not supposed to have any feelings towards it, but positive ones, or else we'll get put on meds. But yeah, I definitely felt that. So now I'm gonna be reading for Mark since Mark couldn't make it with us as well. The recommendation he chose was to ensure the availability of age appropriate, high quality services and engage young people. I like that one. Um, so what Mark had to say about this was he wanted y'all to find better ways to get mental health resources to youth via workers, social media, pamphlets, etc. He didn't always have access to that information. It would have been helpful to be able to talk with a caseworker or new alternative options besides traditional therapy. Virtual therapy would have been great because he already had a lot to do and it would have been easier to call someone while he's out. If he had that information at the time, it would have given him more skills to deal with different situations and he would have had a positive outlook on the experience as a whole. And thank you for listening to our recommendations. Now, Jihad, if you don't mind, can you read us J for J's recommendations?
Okay, I'm
Yes,
gonna.
I can.
Do you want to do a quick introduction, Jihad and Aishali? Do you want to introduce yourselves really quick before we jump into the recommendations?
Okay, this is the part. Okay. My name is. I've been with JLC for my third year. Miss Cathy, don't smile. I'm sorry. I've been with JLC for 3 years. I've been with JLC because I mean they helped me. Like I was a quiet person before I joined JLC. Never really talk. Then they offered me a job in my situation with the youth and incarceration. So they really helped me. That's why I joined. And now I will get into the recommendations.
Jihad, one second.
Okay.
Ashley, do you want to introduce yourself, Ash?
Yeah, but do I gotta turn my camera on like he did?
You do not. No, you don't. Nope. Whatever's comfortable for you.
Okay, why should this year, this going to be my third year going into J for J, and I do this work because I was in placement and the foster care system, and it's not out. I want to make a change for people in them systems.
Thanks, Ash. Appreciate you. All right, Jihad, now we got you on the recommendations. Thanks for your patience.
Okay. Recommendations that Juvenile Law Center came up with: develop develop anti-racist prevention services that work and support youth, use racial impact and community assessment to increase equally for children and youth. E- equity, I apologize, equity, equity for children and youth. Incorporate racial equity strategies at every stage in the juvenile justice process. Access and expand the spectrum of services for youth and families. Redirect funding to family centered community bases services that work. Create concrete strategies and opportunities to listen to youth and family stories and their expertise on juvenile justice reform. And that's all the recommendations
Thank
that
you, Jihad,
juvenile law
for
center
sharing
came.
those. So actually,
You're
can you
welcome,
tell
Brit.
me your favorite two recommendations and why they are your favorite two recommendations?
Um, well, my first one is decrease racial disparities and uh, and incorporate racial equity strategies at every. Is that one? Oh, I'm tripping.
Yeah, that's definitely one. Equity strategies.
Yeah, at every stage in the juvenile justice process. And
Okay.
so I chose decrease racial disparities because it's important to engage youth in court. I've had so many court experiences when I didn't understand what was going on unless they gave me the time to explain. I think they need to speak directly to us, not just who we're with. They need to best connect with us in order for us to have our best outcome. And I chose the incorporate racial equity strategies at every stage in the juvenile justice process. That's long because that includes requiring ongoing trainings for attorneys and district attorneys. I think I said on adolescent development, engaging youth in court, and developmentally and culturally appropriate access to counsel for children and youth. Because when I got in the system during court, no one explained to me what was actually going on. I was not told what certain words meant or told what pleading guilty meant in my situation. No one walked me through the court process.
Thanks, Ash.
Thank you for sharing that, actually. Jihad, what are your two favorite recommendations? How do they relate to you? And tell us about it. You still with us, Jihad? You here? Where you at?
Yes, I'm still here. I had to
Eh,
unmute. I had to unmute myself. I apologize. One recommendation that stood out to me was incorporate race equity strategies at every stage in the justice process. And the reason why I chose that one was because to divert you from minor offensive like status offenses or truancy. Require agencies to work with police to stop racial profiling. They should come work more in our communities, like attending community forums. Police should also work to help address community issues, not just locking people up. For example, when police are patrolling the city, if they see communities cleaning up neighborhoods, they could stop and engage in help. And another recommendation that stood out to me was redirect funding to family-centered community-based services that work. And I say that because it's important to get into the neighborhood. It's important to get into the neighborhoods instead of going off statistics, etc. Statistics. That's a tongue twister. I'm sorry for me, etc. The city can reuse money or take money and invest it into the community. like putting into schools, cleaning up the communities, fixing up houses for families instead of continuing using money for things that are not benefiting the communities.
Thanks, Shahab.
Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
sharing that. So now we got through all our recommendations. We got to talk about which ones mean the most to us. Everybody had a nice amount to say. So now we're going to transition into a Q&A. We're going to ask questions to the audience and let y'all respond to it, let y'all talk to us. So just give me 1 second while I pull up those questions so I can be 100% certain. Okay, here we are. So the first question for the audience, so anyone feel free to answer this and we'll listen to you, we'll talk to you, we'll see how you feel. How are you feeling after seeing these recommendations? What are your thoughts? So basically, how do you feel about these recommendations? You heard them, you heard our stories. What's your thoughts on it? And will you use these recommendations or would you recommend them in the future? Anyone can answer that.
People can also put your answers in the chat and we can kind of read them out loud too. That would be helpful. So I won't say your name though, don't worry. Not that your names aren't already showing on here. Someone said that these recommendations are very strong and will definitely incorporate them into their work when they can. Now, there's a follow-up question, a couple questions. So this person should think maybe more specifically because we're gonna be asking specifics.
Yeah, so shout out to you for answering a question. So what are your thoughts on these? Like, you think they're liable? You think we're asking for too much? You think these should have already been implemented? What's your views on these recommendations?
We have a couple other responses. Definitely keep these in mind in my work and we'll lift them up where possible. Someone else mentioned like the recommendation about having youth interviewed before they get into care, before jumping to medications. That's always an ongoing theme with our youth fostering change group, is that a lot of people mention getting medications before getting real evaluations or assessments.
Okay, so I guess we can move on to our next question, which is definitely a follow-up. How can
Oh,
you—
hold on one
Brit,
second,
Brit,
Brit.
Brit,
There
Brit.
isn't.
Yeah.
Oh wait, there's
on
more.
there.
One
My bad.
You're on it though, you're on it.
Yeah. So someone mentioned I work directly with juveniles charged as adults. One of the things I put in practice is to try to explain as simple as possible the court process and what to expect, because as was mentioned, oftentimes young people don't understand what's going on. I always encourage young people to ask questions if they don't understand. They say, oops, sorry, it's moving so fast. It's hard for me to read while it's moving. They say they will, but don't always do. So like that's another situation where people always ask questions, but young people don't ask questions. We know it's because it's a really intimidating atmosphere. Much of the feedback you all have given about court is try to ask those questions not in court, or ask if they have questions not in court. Someone said they work with youth in Pittsburgh and have seen the negative effects of mental health issues on every young child. It's important to me to advocate for my students and get them these resources if available. Someone else mentioned, I believe that mental and behavioral health services should be at the top of the list and included in all services. Great.
I think there's one more too, Cathy.
What did I miss?
Oh,
one of the things that's confusing to me is knowing that the systems look very different state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction. I think that that's true. If you want to respond, go ahead, Marcia.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would just add to that response is I do think the youth came up with a lot of very broad, concrete recommendations that are about like reallocating funding or that are about trainings for staff and those things that I think honestly they're so broad that they can be incorporated, I believe, in any jurisdiction and just modified to fit the specific needs of youth. So I would definitely encourage you to like take a deeper dive into their reports, because I really do believe that all their recommendations could be implemented on a national scale to really improve outcomes for youth, no matter which jurisdiction you're in.
Yes, and shout out to Betty. They're definitely afraid to look educated in front of the educated, so to avoid the stupidity where. Okay, so how can you help implement these recommendations in your advocacy? How can you use these, and how can you get your team to use these? In the comments below.
And maybe if people have specific examples of where you think it's possible, that would be really helpful. I think we have a lot of professionals across the state of Pennsylvania on this webinar right now. And so ranging from social workers, advocates, attorneys, case workers, court professionals. So maybe other people can help out their colleagues too, if you think that there are places that these recommendations can be implemented. Oh, and there's a bunch of people outside of PA too. So all of you share.
Give people a second to type or two.
Definitely. I seen the paragraphs from last one. I'm like, you gotta let it marinate a little bit. You gotta let it.
People are typing away. So someone mentioned I work in education, and I think the recommendation to have youth input and youth lead the services and things that impact their lives is really helpful. We try to have youth shaping the curriculum and practices in our facility, and I think that's really important. So having much more youth say, because they're the ones who have to carry it out. So that's really important too. And if anybody else on the panel here from YFC or J4J want to respond to some of the things that we've talked about too, you can always jump in.
I would plug for that person. If you are on the series, please join next week. If folks want to learn more about what our young people have said about how to really engage young people in case planning and services, their roadmap tool is really, really, I think, critical and really engaging and really creative. So please join next week if you can to learn more about that tool. You know, especially I think around education, it would be really helpful.
Okay, someone else had mentioned that I manage mentors, tutors, and have started to incorporate a more comprehensive strategy for their training and how to talk about, or how to talk with youth about their mental health in an open environment. I think that's so great. I think that talks about normalizing mental wellness in a way that's really necessary. Young people.
Okay, so now that we talked about how you can help implement these recommendations, what are some barriers to implementing? What are some barriers to implementing these? So, what do you think would be the biggest barrier if you was to take one of these and show it to your team? Say, hey, I want to do this. What issues do you think you'll run into?
Someone had put down, there's a couple of things coming in here. Someone mentioned they'll be sharing these recommendations with the families they work with. One of the biggest barriers they see in implementing is a lack of high quality trauma-informed mental health services that are really tuned into the needs of youth. Yes. This person has so many youth pushed into services that do not feel confidential and supportive. This is an excellent guide to present to policymakers and legislators around funding high quality services and strengthening protection. Before I jump into another comment, can anybody from Youth Fostering Change or Juveniles for Justice speak to being maybe pushed into services that don't feel confidential or supportive?
Yeah, definitely. While you're in care, most of your life is being pushed into things you don't want to do or be a part of in general. Whether it's getting medication, whether it's going to therapy, or even family therapy. I remember talking to someone once, and they were forced to be in family therapy when they had no intentions on reconciling with their family. So I think throughout the whole care experience, we get pushed into things we don't want to do or don't feel comfortable with doing because no one really talked to us and see how we're feeling. Dwayne, I think you want to answer that question.
Oh, I
I know
think Speedy wanted to jump in, Britt.
where you at.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, just unmuted. Does anybody else from YFC or J for J want to talk about being pushed into um, supportive services or mental health services that didn't feel confidential?
Well, okay. I'll go.
Go ahead, Jihad.
Okay. Well, well, I used to go to therapy when I was young. I stopped going because the only thing they kept telling me it was nothing was wrong, and I went like for a couple of years, like from like around age of 9 to 14, and then where I was kept going, it kept saying nothing was wrong, so I just stopped going. So I mean, it was no help to me, but it was like it's like they ask you questions, like I guess the questions they ask you in therapy, like I guess like script. I feel like they script most of the time. Like they don't really act. They just like see something that they gotta read off of.
So you're saying the experience felt a little phony and scripted? Like,
Yeah, yes,
I
that's what I'm trying
definitely
to say.
I can also talk about a little non-confidentiality within those treatments. I remember when I was in once I got into care, they gave me therapy like 2 weeks before I got discharged. Not sure why. But they put me in with a therapist, and the whole time, like a psychiatrist, the whole time, my caseworker was sitting right next to me, just the whole way through, even almost answering some of the questions for me as if I didn't have a voice, which she was obviously showing because, well, you wouldn't be in the room if I had one, you know? So confidentiality isn't really something we're given. It's more like a privilege sometimes. Um,
There's a
is
couple other here that I just want to respond to. One, there's a young person who said that they're a foster youth and interested in becoming an advocate for foster youth, wants to start their own nonprofit. I want to see this to be a way for people wanting to foster to feel more comfortable with the foster care system and the children in placement, a place that young foster youth feel heard and supported around the clock. I just thought you all would like to hear that wonderful comment.
yeah.
Um,
Shout out to you, Julia. I actually read that in the chat a little bit earlier. I was waiting for y'all to read that one out loud. And if you're in Philadelphia, you might as well just apply with us and work with us for a little bit before you can proceed to your bigger plans.
we would love to have you.
Most definitely.
Someone else mentioned there are many great points throughout this session and last week's. One recommendation that they will implement will be to be mindful of asking the client to check in at their office, which is located downtown. Never thought about that as a negative association related to coming downtown. I think that was a really great conversation we had last week.
Right.
Being comfortable being around the court buildings and the officers. It's not something that can be changed since their offices requires in-person check-in, but acknowledging the possible fear that youth might be experiencing might validate that person, might help build trust. And I'll just respond saying, I know people have to check in their offices, but you can also go walk out, go to
Yeah,
McDonald's, pick something else up like that.
definitely. You don't have to meet the youth in triggering areas. You can go have lunch with them at Starbucks. It doesn't matter. Cathy, is there anyone else that spoke?
There's one more.
Alrighty.
So
Can I
one
add a,
go ahead,
sorry, can I add a point to what you and Brett shared?
please.
Just the back up Brit and Cathy about triggering stuff. I also think too, when we talked last week about lunch, and creating space, like at JLC, we have like a small office area for youth. Like it's just respectful to create a space also if it has to be in your office. And I'll be very frank, there are government offices. I'm sure there's some space that can be designated that is somewhat youth friendly, where there could be lunch, where folks can meet with clients, not at their desk in an open cubicle where you're talking about like really traumatic things. So I think there's like small stuff y'all can do too. And like Britt said, like walk outside, like Cathy said, get lunch, grab a sandwich, something to decrease the amount of trauma, even if you can't not have them meet at your office. I think there's definitely strategies.
Yeah,
Someone
definitely.
someone had mentioned they saw a lot of tension between judges who order behavioral health services and the law that gives our young people a right to counsel to those services, that they always try to make sure court orders include voluntary language about therapy so their clients know it's their choice to engage or not. And I think that that's a really good step in terms of providing like autonomy for your clients, but there is another step of learning what actually fits for them. So many of them might not want to partake in traditional therapy, but might benefit from other therapeutic supports or services. And I think that this report, this document, this tool really highlights being creative about what therapeutic services actually mean, because we have a very traditional view of what therapeutic services. It's like medication or therapy, but it's much bigger than that. There are a lot of other options that you can use to implement these supports. Does anybody want to add to that, or should we move to the next question?
Let's
Are we
see.
still on? Sorry about that, Brent.
Oh no, definitely speak, Duane. I can go
Are
next.
we're still in the same question, right? About youth participating in services and they're not that they don't really want to.
Yeah, you can speak
Or
on
we're
that,
on a
Duane.
different question. Sorry, I don't mean to backtrack,
No,
but
all
Well, I actually wanted
yeah,
to hear your answer. That's why I called you earlier, because I remember hearing your story, and your story, it had so many key points where that could have been brought in. So I actually wanted to hear your answer. So let us hear it.
yeah. So when a youth, of course, as what Britt was saying, if they're participating in like therapy or given meds, she was saying that a youth they had family therapy, and really they didn't really want to be part of that family therapy for whatever reason. But it's just like if youths are participating in something that they don't want to, of course you're not really going to get the best effort or a good response to it because it's not something that they want to do. I think it should be by choice what the youth wants to do, what services the youth wants to allow. I think case managers and whatever supports that's available to them should recommend it. But I feel like in certain circumstances, it should be a choice for the youth to be able to say yes and no to whatever they want to participate in without any penalty. Now, an example that I actually, I'll give an example. Uh, there was, as in a group home, I was in a group home, and there was another youth that was in there with me. Now he was on meds. I'm not sure what meds that he was on, but he, of course, he didn't want to take them. And like I said, I don't know what meds he's on, but he didn't want to take them. But there was a penalty. There was, of course, consequences if he didn't take it, and that's what they told him. And they said, they was going to take something away from him, like him having home visits or going home to go see his family or any visits. And they said they was going to take that away from him. And seeing that right there is obviously, it's crazy to see something like that. I don't think, I'm not sure what the reason he was on meds, but I don't think a penalty like that should obviously be set up in place, or the first thing that should obviously, be talked about, like, oh, we're going to take something away from you if you don't take the meds. It's crazy. I just think that in certain senses, you should have a voice. Like Britt says, should have a voice, and it is very important that they speak up and say something.
Thank you for sharing that, Duane. I actually can relate to that a lot. I remember when I was in care, I seen other youth deliberately tell the staff I'm not taking this and get in trouble for it. And that's when I knew from that moment that I'm not going to tell them I'm not taking it, but I'm not going to take it. I'll make it look like I took it and make you feel good about yourself and your prescription. But I never, once I peaked game, I never took that medicine. Don't take what they give you. You don't need it. They even tried to tell me I was improving, and they talked about lowering my dose, and I'm like, I'm not on anything. So it's like, okay. This goes back to what Betty was talking about, the stupidity and looking a little not educated when they do those things. So thank you for sharing that. And I think we got another question. Okay, so out of all these recommendations, which ones can you implement tomorrow? Like, is there anyone you can get started on soon as you hop off this call? And a follow up to that was, which ones are need more time? Which ones you think is going to take a little process to get going?
Britt, I think you can mix in the last question with this one. I think this can be all
Right.
part of the same conversation.
Okay. So the last question is, could you see yourself or your agency realistically using these recommendations? So do you see it? How you feel about it? And if you can go out tomorrow and set this in place, which one are you taking with you?
And I know we've been talking a lot about the YFC recommendations, but a lot of J4J's recommendations focused on better engagement with the police, better engagement with a young person to kind of talk about why they might be entering into the juvenile justice system, doing racial impact assessments to see, are people handling cases in an ethical way? Are there more people entering into the juvenile justice system because they're being profiled? Also we can speak to some of J4J's recommendations too. I just wanted to bring just a little reminder there too.
Can you repeat that one more time for the people in the back, Cathy?
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do like a little quick flash through J4J's on the presentation here, so that people can see them again, as long as we're loading at an appropriate time here.
Question: did we catch on to Aaron Blair's statement about art and dance and sports and music and therapeutic activities that doesn't involve medication or someone that can't relate to you talking to you about your life?
I did not say that. Can you blow that one up a bit?
Yes, it's right here on Q&A. It's the little one right there. I can read what she said actually. So Aaron said, I also love the idea of making sure things like art, dance, sports, music, and other therapeutic activities that are very normal parts of youth life and culture. I was so sad hearing last week how many of you did not feel supported in accessing those other things, and I wish that the courts would include those activities as meeting the standard for voluntary therapy. And that was Aaron. Shout out to you. We almost missed it.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that last part's huge too, making sure it counts as part of therapeutic services, because I don't think people see that.
Yes, and we got Rachel She just signed on and said one barrier might be the lack of support from mental health professionals, teachers, and program staff who are from the communities overrepresented in these systems, like Black teachers and social workers, therapists who live with a disability or have their own experiences in the system. Professionals need workplace protections like fair pay, professional development, and training so they can focus on their clients at the most important thing. I feel that. And that was Rachel. Shout out to you too.
Marcia, there's one that's direct, like at the chat here.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Happy to read it. About 80% of clients are in jail. Betty, I hope you're okay with me sharing. I think it's fine. Like I called you out, but I think it's okay. About 80% of clients are in jail when they're working with them, so they're not meeting in the office. Not meeting in the office is something that they can do. They're meeting with them in jail and in private rooms. But when she does meet with them, have those clients are out of custody, she will certainly think about taking into consideration on touching on coping strategies that do come in. So one thing I have wrote in the chat and I suggested was if you still have to come to like places and environments or court or probation that's really triggering, I have wrote Betty and said, like, is there ways that staff can kind of be trained on maybe some coping skills or techniques for meeting with youth? I think especially when you're talking about youth being in such a traumatic environment, being housed in a prison and possibly dealing with solitary confinement and like all the many things that are traumatic, thinking about how folks can work with them and talk about different coping skills or techniques, especially if you can tell or sense they might be feeling anxiety in the meetings, or even if they seem to get like frustrated coming down there, like I'm sure it's tied to their overall experience. And so I appreciate Betty saying that she will take into consideration talking about coping strategies with folks. I think that's really important for people.
Right. I want to respond to that a little bit because I think you said something about her going to see them and they're like they can't leave where they're at.
Yeah, they're incarcerated.
Okay, so I don't know the procedure because I've never been there before, but if you could bring like a little something fun to cheer them up that's appropriate, like a card, maybe a book, maybe something that'll bring their spirits up, get them going until that next meeting y'all have. And that can also be something y'all talk about. Like if you pull out like a little book, poetry book, any book. I read this book called Hold and Smoke, and it's actually about a youth that's incarcerated for something he didn't even do. And he's there and he's being framed by one of the their staff at the jail that they're in. So Hold and Smoke, such a good book. So you can definitely find something for the youth that can just give them a little peace of mind while they're in there and make them feel like a person still. And we got another one coming from, it's actually from Erin again. It was at 11:50, so we're gonna run it back a little bit. She said, I will be sharing these with families I work with. One of the biggest barriers I see to implement this is a lack of high quality trauma informed mental health services that are really tuned into the needs of youth. I have so many youth pushed into services that they do not feel confidential or supportive. This is an excellent guide to present to policymakers and legislators around funding high quality services and strengthening protections. And that was Erin. Thank you for that one.
And there's also one about
wait, 1 second. Erin just followed up literally just now. I believe
I was just gonna read that one. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you got it.
Okay, I believe that CUA and DHS workers can access the emergency fund to support paying for those activities as educational supports and therapeutic supports. I find that there is a lack of understanding of how to access the emergency fund and how to make a good case for access to alternative emotional supports. Shout out to Erin, she's on it today.
Mm-hmm. I wrote, we are happy to help make the case of why those need to be people, and I think too, and again, just to overhaul like all the stuff that J4J and YFC is talking about, I think staff really have to understand that like being in child welfare is actually within itself a traumatic experience. It does not matter what you think you're doing to help the kid, it actually is traumatic. No matter what the kid has done that's tying them to being incarcerated is a traumatic experience. There is nothing about these experiences that are not traumatic, even if you do well. And so I think when people are talking about like making the case for using emergency funds, the sheer case that youth are tied to this system is actually the case to use the emergency funds to get them in programs and supports. So any way that we can like elevate, uplift that and say that, we're happy to support.
Mar, one more time, say it louder for the judges in the back. Say it louder for the test workers in the back that did not hear you today.
Yes.
One more time.
One more time. It is all a traumatic experience. Please reach out to us. We are happy to elevate this in whatever way that we can.
And I think on top of that is that both experiences, once again, no matter why you're in the system, you are forced into adulthood so fast. And so I think there is, for some reason, as soon as you enter in this, people don't see you as a person or a child anymore. I mean, you're a kid. You're an absolute kid. Doesn't matter, like, especially for the justice system, why you entered in. Maybe something that you did was a very adult thing, but that does not make you an adult. That makes you a emerging adult. It makes you in the prime of your adolescent development, making risky decisions, and that's super normal. And so for some reason, when kids enter into these systems, they're automatically seen as adults, and they're still very much kids making choices.
And also don't punish us for having normal child reactions. If you take any kid out of their home for any reason, some kids have never been away from their parents, away from their family. You can't just expect them to be all fine and dandy with it. It's just not normal. Actually, y'all shouldn't even, if you put a kid in a home, a foster home, a group home, a residential, and you see them happy as days can be, I think maybe y'all should talk about therapeutic services even then, because it's like, we're kids. None of us are used to this. It's not normal for us. So once you do it, don't penalize us for acting normally for something that's going on in our lives. And shout out to Eliza for that. Thank you for the amazing comments you made in the comments. And shout out to you. Hashtag Coach E. I worked with you for a little bit. It's nice to see you here. And Betty dropped another one. You want to get it for Betty, or you want me to?
It's up to you, Brit. You need a break? I can jump in.
Okay, so in Arizona, bringing outside materials into jail is not permitted. The most I've been able to, is to give it back blank sheets of paper. That's not fair. That's not fair for youth. No. Let's work on that.
I mean, if you're talking about blank sheets of paper, there's a whole lot you can do with blank sheets of paper.
I mean, we can do a little origami, but come on now. I feel like if these are kids and you're incarcerated, at the end of the day, let them get a book. Let them get a Christmas card. Let them get something to still remind them that they're human, they're a person, and they're children. Like, even if it's a toy from McDonald's, come on now.
Even adults in jail get TVs and radio sets and stuff. So, like, why are the youth getting less? I mean, comment on what Britt said, like, now that I think about it, like, people that are in jail, like, that I know of, they can get pretty much a whole bunch of different stuff. And it's like, the youth ain't getting nothing. And they're the youth. They're the ones that need their brain stimulated. You know what I mean? Like,
so what Betty is saying is the place, the incarceration, they can bring them in themselves and they can give it to the youth, but outside parties cannot. So that's definitely understandable.
I think also one thing, I mean, this all really comes down to trying to connect with someone, right? And make them feel comfortable. And it's a lot easier to connect with someone when you have something to connect with, like food or like a location or a present, but that's not the only way you can connect with someone. And we've found, at least, you know, Marcia, you can jump in with this as well, and really anybody, like even like having a conversation about like how you're doing, or like what were some of the things that you really liked doing not in here, and like really humanizing that experience between the two of you, because pretty much all those interactions that young person is going to have are going to be really rigid and professional. So like making a space to have a conversation like
Right.
any normal person would have, because they are a normal person. Even if you don't have anything with you, that's really important.
Betty, I got a question for you actually.
Brit, can I add one point to what Miss Cathy said really quick? And then
All day,
I
every
promise I'll
day.
pass to you.
All day, every day.
Thanks. No, I just want to add to what Cathy said. There's an old report that J4J did called Broken Bridges, and they actually talk about the importance of their attorneys actually asking them like real questions about who they are and their interests, and just talking to them generally about what's happening. And I think to the point that Cathy made earlier is it also treats them still like children, and not that you're still coming and you're like, look, this is what's happening to your case. We have court in 30 days. This is what I need to know. Like, they are still a child. So you actually need to ask them like real questions and connect with them, just like Cathy said, because that it humanizes them, and it also reminds us that they're a child who are in prison, and you need to remember that they're a child. So just elevating the points that Cathy said.
Through all the experience, and I can't even imagine what goes down in the places they're in. So just be human, be kind, talk to these youth, find ways to connect with them. You can find out what they like. Betty, I heard you said that paper is allowed. So if you could bring them like maybe a poster, is posters allowed? That's big paper. But if you can bring them like a poster of a TV show they like, just to get some color in a area if possible. Or just talk about things they like simply. Say outside of the case, dedicate 10 minutes, maybe 20, to getting to know that youth that you are meeting with and understanding who they are as a person. And I feel like that will help you better represent their case, you knowing who you're talking to, who you're with, and understanding this person. So it's always a vibe.
I know there's a very specific question about what someone can bring in. I don't have details for that. If you want support with that, Aaron, getting information, we can also connect you with someone in our office as well.
I actually feel like that's something J4J could potentially work on. Helping the youth feel more human while they're in these systems, maybe allowing them to get like maybe a gift here and there, a little more freedom within where they are. I feel like that's something y'all could potentially talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll follow up. We can follow up with some people about the question that you posed, Aaron. Or if there are any other, I know there might be some, I'm looking through, scrolling through. There are a couple JLC attorneys still listening. So if anybody can answer Aaron's question, you can put it in the chat right now, because I do not know the answer to whether or not people can bring in photographs of their children.
I hope so.
Placement. I think it depends on the state.
Yeah.
Or the county or the facility, really. So maybe you'd like to reach out.
Right. I think we had a good conversation today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think we did good. I think we had fun. And now we about to transition into the. If you have any questions for us, here's your time to shine. Here's your time to get it out. Any concerns, worries, let us know.
Oh, one sidebar question. I know that adults can get pictures. Like if you're mailing someone, you can send people photos. I'm really, really interested now in following up with our legal team if they allow kids to get this in placement. And if they don't, that's
I think
something else we need to work on, because I think that's a big issue. Oh, there's one more question, Brit.
Okay, go ahead, Mar.
Do you think so? Miss Jenny said, do you all think that youth want more options for peer support in the behavioral health system?
Yes, most definitely. I feel like youth, with the so much lack of support they have, and how everywhere they go, people are telling them what they need, what they want. People are talking at them, not talking to them, and definitely not understanding or relating to them. I feel like supports, even basic supports like getting to know someone and making them feel comfortable in the place they're living in, could definitely be, that's definitely what youth want. That's what we all ask for. When I talk with all my peers at Juvenile Law Center, we all mentioned supports that we never received, that we just wanted so badly, that we still probably need today. So support is very important. Anyone else want to answer that?
Yeah, I agree. I think there should be a lot more supports in the behavioral health for youth. I just see that there's no guidance or plan set up in place, or there's just not enough. I mean, when you have more supports, better things happen. You get a good outcome, and when you don't, I mean, it is all over the place, and it's just what should I do? Should this happen, or can I get some help? And then there's no help. So yeah, I do agree with that. I just think that there should be it should be widely available, and it should be more should always be offered. Would anybody else like to answer?
Um, well, I agree because I feel like with less supports, a youth to be more able to like act out for the simple fact that they don't have like the supports they need to have something to do other than what they're doing. And yeah, I just feel like because when I was in placement, all I didn't have no support at all. It was up until I got into the foster care system, I started getting a little bit support. But yeah, I think people it just need to be a lot more supports.
We agree with you, Ash. We agree with you.
I mean, and then if there is support and they're offering it, one thing that I do find confusing is that they automatically stop it. Like if you're having therapy, they stop it, or if you're in a group facility residential and you're having it, they stop it. And I don't really
Yeah.
understand. That's not really helping the issue here, and it's crazy that it's being stopped.
Yes. And outside of stopping it, it's like they would give you the supports you don't want or need before they give you the ones you're asking for. And I think that's definitely an issue. If we're telling you exactly what we want, give it that to us. Don't give us what you think I need or what you think would be better for me, because that would just make the outcome just not the best. And also, like Duane was saying, I remember supports I had at one place, and then if I switch to another placement, all those supports get taken away. They don't roll over with you, and the supports don't roll over once you get discharged out of care. So if you was on bed, so you did have a therapist, and that was something you actually needed, and you acknowledge that, and then once you get out of there, out of care, it's like, no, you don't have your meds, you don't have your therapy, you have no one to talk to, and you're basically alone. Like getting out of care, they don't even help you get your vital documents once you leave. So the support never followed through.
And if it does, it takes a very long time, and it's really sad, and it's crazy to see that it does.
Yes, definitely. Betty, she asked a question about what's next for for people who this is their last year with Juvenile Law Center. There's none of us here right now, but I am a third year, and next year will be my last year. And I'm already planning ahead. The next step for me would be figuring out a way to create my own form of art therapy practice without it actually being art therapy. It will be some form of therapeutic art for low income families, like a nonprofit for minorities in my community where I currently live, and people that can't afford therapy, and it'll be a form of art therapy practice, and that's what I'm working on and trying to get to. Speedy, you also will be done next year. Is there, what's your plans after next year?
Brit, you'll
My
also still be working with us. I really hope so,
hopefully
You know
I'm
I'm coming for that alumni job. You know I'm
That's
coming for that
right.
alumni.
That's
like,
right.
I'm trying to be behind a desk like Jazz. Like I ain't even gonna lie, like I'm with it. But I don't know. I mean, I think honestly I might end up going back to school. Um and I don't know, it depends on how things work out. Um Either that or hopefully I'll be making enough money off my art where I can be bougie for a bit.
Love it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm a simple-minded dude.
Yes. Actually, is this your third year with J for J?
Did we start this? Our year started, right? Our year
Yes,
started.
we
Yeah.
have begun.
Yeah, my third year.
Okay, so what will you be doing next year, for your final year with JLC? What will you be doing after JLC? What's your plans, your
Uh,
goals?
more JLC, but hopefully I can expand my business from just a studio to like an actual space that kids can go to, youth can go to like anything artist wise. Like when it comes to beat making, if you do music, singing, instruments, like just like a community based program type thing.
I feel that, and I seen vids of Ashley Studio. It's lit. So if you got bars, holla at Ashley. What?
That's cool.
Sure.
I just
I'm
want to let
coming to
people
work for
know
all
that
of y'all companies when they open. Just an FYI.
You
I will
know
do
you
some
got managed.
contracting with y'all.
The position ready for you.
All right.
Most
I'm ready.
definitely.
Come on, Brit. And actually, I'll be prepared.
Listen, all day, every day. I think we got a few more questions.
well,
I
we
got
do
some.
have to we do have to wrap up because this will shut down in T minus 3 minutes. So
All right, so I think we got room for one more.
I don't know if there's any other questions. Just lots of praise for you all.
Oh,
Let's
okay, I
see.
see y'all. Well,
Yeah.
if that's the case, we
Praise.
should close out. I had fun. I hope everyone else did. Tune in to next week. That'll be the final stage of our roadmap to reform, and we are changing the world. Do anyone from J for J or YFC got anything they want to say before we close out? I got any feelings?
Really fast. Aaron, please feel free to reach out to us. One of our alumni had talked about that they would like to do some work around supporting parenting youth who are incarcerated. So maybe that's something that J for J also wants to take on. So please reach out if you want to talk more about that. I think all of our members, and I'm sure YFC probably has some really good pieces also.
Yes.
Oh,
And
please
another,
email us, Aaron. Please email us. If you don't have our email, I will send it to you right now. Aaron raised that they would like to talk to you all about a youth-led training.
most definitely.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I'm
Thank
down.
you.
I'm big down. Okay. So Marcia, would you like to talk a little bit about our next webinar for the 30th of October, right before Halloween? So it's gonna be a little spooky webinar. And
Yes, I will do it in like 15 seconds because we are about to shut down.
all right,
One, thank you all for being here. Aaron, please reach out. I think I sent you our email. The next webinar, we will focus on their roadmap to reform. Oh my goodness, their roadmap tool to help engage youth in their planning around access to resources. So we hope to see you guys next week, Friday the 30th, again, lunchtime, 12 o'clock.
yes. See, you did it before time cut out. Everyone have a good one. And
Great. Yep.
I can't wait to see y'all next week.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.